Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to yet again another Free Support Friday. I'm none other than Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. Welcome to each and all of you out there in chat right now. Make sure you guys can hear me all right. I know I only have the best of problems between audio, video, trying new things out, always making adjustments because, hey, who doesn't like a little bit of a continuous improvement upon things inside of your life or inside of Fusion? So I see Bogdan, great to have you as always. Once again in chat, it's all good. Awesome, man. I'm glad that you guys can hear me. I know for a lot of you guys, we'll give this a few minutes to get things going. We'll see more and more people show up as always here at the top of the hour. I don't know if it's lunch break or what it exactly is, but you guys know the rules. We're going to go ahead and kick this off with a good old energy drink to get things going. As you guys know, I will not drink a beer on stream. I've thought about it. A lot of days I've needed it, but this case, we're going to go ahead and get the energy drink going. Hey, got Gary out there. Awesome. Gary, great to see you also in chat. Audio is good. Awesome. So as you guys know, at any time, if you guys have any questions, I did get a couple of last minute questions in. Phyllis is out there. Awesome. How's it going? I did get a couple of last minute support questions in. Guys, if you have questions at any time, feel free to throw them in chat. I'll do my best to keep up. I know Wednesday's YouTube Live, if you guys didn't see Wednesday's YouTube Live where we covered Toolpath, that was a wild one. Tons of people in chat. Lots of people showed up for it. But you could also use the support email down below. Again, you guys are watching this at a later date. I know a lot of you like to throw this on like a podcast. And with that, watch it as you're driving, maybe home from work tonight or throughout the weekend. Feel free to use that email address. Send us support tickets. If you guys want to see stuff outside of this, again, comments, likes, and subscribes are always good. So I'm going to go ahead and swap screens here. So it's Phil or Phyllis? Maybe I don't know. I'm also a Phil. I don't know what Phil I am. As I tell most people, I'm 2L Philip, because I'm double the fun, of course. But all right, so the first thing that I actually came in just this morning real quick is had a customer reach out about tapered end mills and possibly some problems. So what I'm going to do here real quick for you guys is we're going to draw out a simple part with some tapered walls to it. And we're going to see if the simulation actually looks proper as I was being requested. So again, just a 3x2 block. We're going to throw some draft on these walls as you guys are going to see. Again, we're just going to give it 15 degrees of draft. Now, the toolpath that they're using and what they're picking is the ability to use a taper end mill on the manufacturing side of things. So let's go ahead and get our setup going. And with that, we're going to have to create an end mill for this, but presumably you're going to utilize something like 2D Contour. Now, I'm going to go in and create a tool from scratch, and this is just going to make my life easier because I know, for one, it's not a flat end mill as I've picked, so there should be a tapered mill. And then from that, let's go ahead and scroll down through here. Let's just go ahead and get us 1/4 inch diameter at the tip. Now, I think one of the problems they may have had is I can never remember, is tapered angle the inclusive angle or is it just the one side of it, right? So there we go, 15 degrees, no corner radius. I'm going to go ahead and do a 3-inch length, 2 inches below holder. And let's just actually, we're going to have to go a little more than that, 2.5. And a little copy and paste Hollywood magic. Who doesn't love that, right? So as you guys can see, there's my end mill. Let's go ahead and bump that length up a little bit more. Now, from that, we're going to go ahead and presumably be able to machine those edges that we're going to select. So again, I'm going to pick actually not the entire chain, but just one segment. Again, for those of you that you guys don't know, you could actually hold the Alt key and pick one edge. Now, presumably, this is where we find out what is the actual 15 degrees we're looking for here. Because if I go ahead and machine, so the 15 degrees I plugged in was actually the taper of one side. So this would have been a 30-degree end mill. But what I'm seeing is it's actually machining and showing me everything all clear. So again, I don't know, Cameron, if you're out there, I know I told you we're going to go ahead and kick this one off with your problem is, but I could assume that maybe your tool was set wrong. I know he was also questioning, maybe I should just do this as a multi-axis swerf toolpath, and we can visit that as well. But as you're seeing here, the taper angled in this case isn't both sides inclusive. So this would actually be a 30-degree end mill. It's 15 degrees as in just one side of it. So again, let's go ahead and lengthen our chain out now. I'm gonna go ahead and do a little double click here. We're gonna grab that other side. And then again, I can go through and maybe we extend that out, you know, to 50. And that's just so we don't start our cut directly on our part. And I have my stock turned off, so let's get that stock turned on. And as you guys can see, we're coming down and we're machining with the tapered end mill around our part. So again, maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. Phil out there, we're just Phil. I like it, works good for me. I'm also just Phil, as most people know. So let's go ahead and shift gears. Again, guys, as more of you come in here, feel free to ask questions at any time. I'm here for you. I'm here to help out in any way I can. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pop open this roller shaft. Now, something interesting about this one, as you guys are going to see, this was one of our questions submitted, again, in our ticket system. Missed the timing of last Friday, so they've been gnawing on this pretty good. But this one goes out to Joe. You guys may know Joe. He comes into our YouTube lives quite a bit, but the problem here is he is manually pulling out this bar more and more each time. So again, the idea is that he is going to, let me just double check my notes here real quick. Yep, manually pulling in the sub pulls. Okay, so there we go. We're gonna go ahead and walk through this, and I think you guys are gonna like this, and I think this is gonna be really good for Joe. Joe, did you make it today? If you did, let me know in chat. But his issue is in the manufacturer workspace, he is utilizing the idea that in the world of Swiss, and I'm gonna say Swiss here, even though I don't believe this is actually a Swiss machine, is you tend to have a guide bushing that you're actually pushing in and pulling out your part as you're machining, right? So in the world of a normal lathe, we're actually going to use a sub spindle to pull our part out. But if you notice through his setups that are predefined, he's basically turning a little bit of the shaft, then pulling it out. Then he's going to come in, do a little bit more turning here. So let me go ahead and click into a couple of these tool paths. So as you can see, he's turned everything back to a certain point here in that first tool path. Then he's picking up the next segment of code. And then I think he's doing this a third time too. So if we go ahead and click on our next setup, you're going to notice the entire part hangs out. Again, he's doing now his cross hole and then his part off. Now he's going to flip over and grab this all in his sub spindle. So again, this is where the first thing I would point out here is the ability to go in. And one, we need to make sure that we're working on the secondary spindle. So again, I'm going to go ahead and kick on secondary spindle. Another thing that I would do if I was you guys out there is I would go ahead and move to a separate work offset for the sub spindle. Now, there's a lot of controversy here because I've seen machines, and I'm not picking on any machine in particular, Mazaks and Akumas tend to do a work coordinate system shift versus utilizing a separate work offset, right? So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and go to a separate work offset for my sub spindle. And now the good news is he has actually put in quite a bit of good notes here for me at the end of the day. Matt, nice to see you out there. I know, Matt, I didn't know if you were going to make it. I did see Sean email you about this. Matt has actually reached out to us about an MSY Mazak nonetheless. But as you can see, the math here is about 1.5 inch pullout. Now, he did put this in as a comment, right? So pull blank to blank stick out, right? So again, whether you're manually pulling this out or you're going to actually utilize what is called bar pull inside of Fusion, you're noticing that with the comments, again, makes it very easy for somebody to set this up and set those different things. So again, we're going to pull a specific distance. Let me go ahead and grab that. And then with that, what I'm going to do is make sure my setup is active. I can go in and do a bar pull. So as you're going to see me here this is where we have the ability to either compensate the tool pass, which means shift the G code, right? So whatever that pull distance is, we did get it given to us at 1.781. Why it's that number, guys, I don't know. I'm using what you guys provide me, right? Or we could actually pull to a brand new work offset. Now, again, neither one is right or wrong. The cool thing is in the world of Fusion, you have the option to go with either one. Now, if I was doing a lot of these parts, I may pull from 54 to 55 to 56, then maybe go 59 on my sub. And that's what makes this so valuable is you can either give it a distance or we can automatically compensate those toolpaths and the G code. So again, as you're going to see me do, and we're invalid in this position, ensure you're in a turning setup. So let's go ahead and go back and see what's going on. We are doing turning. That looks good. You know what we failed to do is our bar grab to start with. So this is an error on me. So I'm going to go ahead and go part handling. Let's do a sub spindle grab. Again, where do we want to grab to? In this case, maybe I offset in whatever distance I plan to grab. So I'm just going to go 1 inch in. And we're looking at this from the side profile. Again, a little tricky because this is a very small part, but you can see we have our grab versus our feed planes. And if I rotate a little bit, so again, we feed in, then we reach in and grab 1 inch. Upon making that grab, let's go ahead and get that above our bar pole. And then we will need to regenerate the 2 of these. So as you can see, my error not went away because yours truly obviously went in and forgot to grab the part before we pulled the part. But we need to finish that out now is after we're going to go ahead and do a sub spindle return. We're going to unclamp the primary chuck and I could send this to a machine position, meaning I want to send it all the way to the home position, or you could actually utilize a specific location if you have that set. So again, this is something that you could actually put into play. Now I put this in the wrong spot. So let's go ahead and drag this up because we'd of course want to do our bar pull sub spindle return move. Hey, it's that time again, Stuart. Great to see you out there, buddy. But as you can see, again, as we did our grab, our bar pull, our sub spindle return, well, at this point, I can actually take my 2 tool paths and drag them back up and above. Again, what I'm seeing here is he's always using offset 1 for these, which means he's still staying in the same work offset. So I could go ahead and not delete my tool paths, but let's delete that setup out of the way. Now, again, we have the same thing here. We need to pull to a certain location. Now, the trick of this is we are pulling a specific amount, right? So we always need to be aware of that. So again, as he's got a pull length to get to that certain stick out, which if my math was correct, we should have 1.7 plus whatever this number is, or whatever the actual dimensions he was using. Again, guys, I'm just winging this one pretty good, but I think you all are starting to see the value here of just a rinse and repeat system where, again, I can go in, I could do another sub spindle grab. As you're going to see, though, the problem is going to be the way we do the grab in the math of this is whether or not it's going to be compensated. Now, this is where post edits come in. We are happy to help you guys with those post edits, but it's all still the same process, right? How far in do you want to grab? Well, I want to grab in 1 inch in front of the part. So again, model front minus 1 inch. We're going to do our bar pull. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just plug in that 5.3 number. Again, compensating our tool paths. And then lastly, we could do our sub spindle return all over again, back to a machine position to get out of the way. So as you're seeing me do here, I'm just going through and nothing more than doing my grab moves and repositions, utilizing the Fusion toolpath side of things versus what was happening with the actual toolpath and trying to break this out into multiple setups, right? So if you wanted to stay in the multiple setup way, I would highly recommend for most of you, though, is being able to create post-process and post-process each pull under a separate work offset. That way you could keep his original structure and still make your pull commands and then command all your tool paths from that brand new setup. But again, as you guys are seeing, is I'm able to kind of stack this all down into one program. If it's something you're looking to do as well, again, just backing this up a little bit so I can get my setups back. You do a little undoing here. Again, the idea would be, give me a few more clicks here. We shouldn't be too far off from bringing some of that other stuff back. As you're seeing, everything's flipping around now. We might have to start this file from scratch. We will not in this case. So again, we have setup 1, setup 2, setup 3. It looks like it failed to actually pull all of our tool paths, which is kind of interesting. And now I am getting a problem where I can't select those tool paths. So let's go ahead and close this out and not save it. We might have just found a bug inside of Fusion real time like always. Again, just a reminder for everybody out there, I see a lot of you guys start to show up to our YouTube live. Feel free to ask questions at any time. Throw your messages in chat. I'd love to help you in any way I can. You could also use the email to send in support tickets down below. So again, I may have just simply asked too much of Fusion by backing up that far that many times. But as you guys are seeing, we're back into our original settings. So again, I could go back, do my bar sub-spindle grab, 1 inch in. From there, we're going to do a bar pull. We have our bar pull distance. If I remember, we're going to go ahead and do that 1.781. This time, I could do a new work offset. And as you're going to see me do here is we're actually going to go to 2, right? So again, we go to our setup 2. This is going to have to now be work offset 2. And that's the idea behind it. So again, as we can now start to daisy chain and stack things together. So now Stuart's in the chat. Stuart, great to have you, buddy. I'm going to go ahead and now pivot and shift gears. Stuart, also one of our lovely viewers that likes to send in parts, questions, and problems all the time. And as you're going to see here, I'm going to pop out this enclosure A. For those of you that didn't catch it, I actually used this part and I sent it over to the old Toolpath AI on Wednesday, and it was pretty interesting to see the results. But the idea behind this part, as Stuart was getting into, is he was having problems where once you start machining on something, now I am going to have to go through and fix some stuff because I'm pretty sure I broke this part quite well when we went ahead and let's just start from scratch because I can recreate the problem on my end. And I shouldn't say it's a problem because it's really not. But here's our model. We're going to go ahead and set our Z. In this case, Z is backside. So actually, we're going to stay in model orientation for this. Fixed size box, as you guys know, is one of my favorites. Millimeter system, not so much. But let's go ahead and hold on here real quick. I got a question. Stuart, you mentioned isolate toolpath during your toolpath demo on Wednesday. What's that? So the isolate, unisolate feature of toolpaths, there is a bug, as they know, or there's something with the API going on. It wouldn't allow me to select and change and edit the toolpaths until I unisolated them, if that makes sense. So again, as you're going to see here, we're going to go ahead and start jumping into this part. Again, we're going to do the backside first. Let me go ahead and get a couple of toolpaths on here. And for those of you that didn't know, we're going to go ahead and use inch tooling on a metric part because why not, right? So again, let's not do 2D. Let's go straight to the 3D. Swap out to my favorite tool. In this case, I don't have a favorite tool in here, so I'm trying to mentally think. 1/2 inch end mill would be, what, about 12 millimeters. And now that we've got the backside roughed out, let's just get another setup onto our other side. Again, Z-axis up. From here, I'm going to go to my stock. Again, I remind you guys of this all the time, but make sure you check the continuous rest machining box when going from setup 1 to setup 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and steal these 2 tool paths. As you guys are seeing, I'm using a couple of Windows hotkeys, Control-C, Control-V as in Victor, just to copy and paste and start working back the other way. Now let's make sure rest machining is working the way it should be. Remaining stock. We're going to go ahead and reduce air cutting. Now, I'd be curious as to why we are still machining around the outside, which I feel like this is a long time bug for some reason. I would also say we probably want in the first setup to just offset minus a little bit. And again, we want to make sure we're down far enough past the bottom of our part, which should now allow our roughing back the other way to avoid the outside. There we go. So it was on me. It was on me, guys, the adaptive clearing, switching from one to the other. But getting into the idea of where Stuart's problem was is as we start to progress in our tool paths, now I'm going to stay in adaptive clearing. I'm actually going to hit cancel here. I'm going to activate the proper setup first. And then I'm going to go back to adaptive clearing and I'm going to redefine my tool. So again, I believe he was stepping down from that 12 millimeter to say a 5 millimeter end mill. And now with the rest machining and everything left as default, I'm a big fan of using the OK method to go ahead and get some tool paths on our part. But the big problem is you start to get a lot of extra motions and a lot of retracts and jumping around, right? So again, this is something that's very interesting because there's a lot of ins and outs that we could do to remedy this and try to really start to cut down on things. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate my toolpath because I'm going to pivot a little bit here and start to show you guys some neat tricks that I've learned over the years to help change how your roughing strategies recognize things. And one of the cooler ones that I've seen and heard is in your ignore stock less than, given the fact that the toolpath prior we're leaving 0.2 millimeters stock to leave everywhere. And again, if we go to our passes tab here, you're going to see it's 0.5 millimeters. So let me just double verify that what I'm saying is correct. This might be a metric thing versus an inch thing. So it is 0.5 millimeters. So we need to be, one, aware of when we roughed prior to, what is our stock to leave. So that's something very handy to remember, is because with that 0.5, if we go into our next geometry, it's ignoring less than 0.2, which means presumably there's areas going to get machined that don't need to be machined. So we're going to go ahead and step that up to that 0.5 to start with. And then what we're going to see is, one, I went and looked at the wrong toolpath, so let's delete that one out. I was hoping to duplicate this, but I think rest machining is going to haunt me pretty good. We might have to just start duplicating our entire setup. So again, adaptive clearing. Yep, it is still 0.5. And then we go into our next toolpath. As you're going to see, is it's already reduced a large amount of what we have going on. So let's do this here. Again, I'm going to do the old-fashioned undo everything and probably cause some problems. So that's our original toolpath. Verifying that. We still have that 0.2 stock to leave. And now I'm going to duplicate my setup. And now, again, I think we're going to have some problems with this just because the nature of the beast of the rest machining. It's always funny when I have to show you guys these problems in real time, how much stuff I have to completely fake out in the software to try to get what I wanted. I think we're going to see it here a little bit better. Give it a minute to calculate. So again, we have our rest machining. And then from that, let's go ahead and up that 0.2 to 0.5, right? So again, by going one to the other, now this isn't going to be the best way to see it unless, let's just go ahead and make them the same, right? That's the easiest way to get everything to give you the same results and start to bounce around between things. So again, we're just going to do the backside first out of a block. And I want to compare the two because as you're going to see right off the start, rest machining on this toolpath in itself is telling me 7 minutes, 18 seconds. Now it is giving me more data. The only thing I've changed right now is the difference in stock to leave, right? Now down below, that same toolpath is showing us 301 kilobytes, and that's 703. So we've started to avoid machining things right off the rip. Yep. So fill, it is 100%. I'm using Control-C and Control-V. Now, if you right click, you could see that you do have copy and paste right here in the window. So again, Control Charlie, Control Victor. Now you do need to paste those at the setup level. So again, when you go to the top setup, you'll notice that I can only paste at the setup level. Control D is for duplicate, which works really well. So again, as you can see, nothing more than just making sure my ignore stock less than is the same number as my stock to leave of the prior toolpath, but it gets better than that. Now, this is the one that really actually made me laugh, which, me not being a millimeters guy, the process is still going to work well, is because even though you have stock less than this number and our stock to leave is that number, now the real problem is there's also a buffer when you think about it. And that buffer is accommodating a tolerance. So you could presumably, in some cases, see anywhere from 0.5 out to about 0.6 in material. So again, this is another really neat thing that if we actually go up to include tolerance on top of that stock to leave there, we should see a reduction even further, which we are. So again, now we're down to 287. Now that 287, again, those kilobytes basically means the toolpath is being reduced because we are not having to cut in certain areas. But again, we can take a look around our part because in a lot of these jumping around motions and helicking in, we can tweak this even further and make more and more adjustments. Now, when anybody takes our class, shout out to Ken and Metal last week for being there. We did a free Fusion boot camp in Minneapolis, but we always like to teach the process. of color coding, right? Like, what is it you're trying to change? Is it the blue or the not blue? Is it where the blue is or how the blue does it, right? So as you guys can see on this part, I'm very happy with where the blue is. I might not be happy with how the blue is doing it. And the reason I say that is because as you're going to notice in some of these corners, we may be going in and making a cut and then jumping up and then jumping here and then jumping there. So how these blue lines are currently doing things, that is something we could adjust in the passes tab. Now, some people don't realize that there's a lot of different settings that you could actually change here. Again, alluding to some really good toolpath edits. For example, machine cavities right off the rip is going to any strategy that requires a ramp. That is where this comes into play. So again, as if I just turn off machine cavities, you're going to notice upon hitting OK, it's now going to skip any pocket area. So again, the floor here, although that is a big pocket, I'm no longer helixing down inside of there, right? And again, now you can see this a little bit more clear where some of us are like, you know what, why can't we just stay in this corner and do everything? Why are we jumping out of this corner to go somewhere else and come back here later? That's all still adjustable as well. So again, going back into our toolpath area, we could go all the way to our passes tab. A little bit further down, as you guys can see, you could force order by depth, meaning machine everything and anything within the confines of the same z-axis consistently, or machine by area. So again, we're going to go ahead and order by area this time around. Now, I like to pay attention to, again, the kilobytes of data, because if they go up or if they go down, we could see a difference. Now, you're going to notice a difference here where these yellow lines particularly are, because instead of us retracting up and jumping all the way over and jumping back and jumping here and jumping there, what you notice is we're still staying right here in this area. Yes, there's a little machine here. There's some there. We're jumping up. We're jumping over. You know, why can't we start to get things to link together a little more cleaner? Well, that's the case where it's a non-blue line problem. So again, we could go back into our toolpath. And as I tell most people, you pay attention to the colors. The passes tab gives you blue lines. Well, the linking tab is basically everything but blue lines. And the reason why I say everything but is because there's no red here in linking, but red does lead to ramp type and style. So again, this is where we could play that game. Linking, those are linking moves. We can simply go in and minimum retract those guys. Again, small changes make big differences in a lot of cases. Go ahead and hit OK one more time and see what we get. Now, when it comes to linking, you may or may not see a good amount of kilobytes reduction. And I say that because instead of us constantly going all the way up in Z and back over, so if you think about these points, right, we would have up, over, down. It's still the same number of points, but it's the location that these points are being generated at. So again, guys, I see a lot of you guys jumping in here on chat and being able to sit here and view our content. Feel free at any time. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, feel free to post them in chat. We're here for you guys. So again, we can tweak this even further. Now, this is where, in my opinion, I might start to do a lot more things, which would be, for example, maybe I don't want vertical lead-ins. I know because we turned off in the passes tab machine cavities, I don't need a helical ramp style. I could actually start doing things like plunging, right? So again, although plunge does still have a ramp clearance after the fact, is anywhere that it cannot plunge, it would still do a helical approach, but we can adjust things down further and further. So again, we go ahead and hit OK. What I'm really looking for is to streamline, as you guys can see, some of these yellow areas. We're still jumping up and back down, but we're no longer doing our vertical lead in and lead out arcs. Now, there's going to be a point when you work at it this way that there's only so much you're going to be able to get out of the toolpath. But again, it's nothing more than that rinse and repeat of looking at our linking tab. You have things like a maximum stay down, which will reduce how high that tool retracts up. You have also your minimum stay down clearances. How close are you going to allow that stay down move when it is down at its lowest? And things from there, again, we could go to least, to most. As you guys will see, though, is when you actually start adjusting these, be careful, because there is a note that when increase with high levels, it will actually take more calculation time. But as you'll see, we could go through and click a few more things there as well. So again, we're going to let this calculate out. We really didn't see a dramatic change in anything. Again, utilizing least, most, things like that. You will notice over here, though, we are rapiding across the part versus retracting out of the part as well. So I do see a couple of questions coming in. Stuart, it looks like a lot of contours. Is there a 3D path like flat that will finish all the walls? Also on Op1, there is no need for compensation. Yep. So I was getting to that, Stuart. Matt, let's go ahead and see. Do you have any suggestions for a way to add manual code at the end of a setup? Yes, I will get to you here in a second, Matt. Phil, or not Phil, Jeff from Trinity, great to see you out there. So again, is now when we start to talk about, as Stuart is asking, is how can I finish up this part? Well, the good news is one, if I have a strategy in roughing, I'm going to go ahead and derive out, but I would go for 3D contour if compensation wasn't a big deal. Now, when is compensation a big deal? This is arguable. I tell most people when you're sub 1 thou tolerance, compensation is probably a needed item, or if you're running large production. So what you're going to see me do here is nothing more than 3D contour. I'm going to go ahead and allow my tool to go all the way outside of the boundary. And by default, let's get a toolpath on the part and see what we can come up with. So it's not ideal at the moment, but there is a lot of things you can do, again, to fix and adjust this out. So one is I'm using contour. Well, sometimes switching gears to a ramp toolpath may also get you quite good results when you consider how lack of moving around you actually have going on. So again, both are very similar. So we're not seeing a big change there. But again, based on now how the blue lines is doing everything, a lot of people forget that you have a lot of different things like flat area detection, your maximum step down versus a minimum step down. All of that starts to come into play when you're trying to automate the process and the systems. So as you're going to see is we do have a maximum step down in this case. Now this tool, I think, what was it? A 5mm tool. We're just going to go ahead and say a 5mm step down. Again, if you turn off or turn on flat area detection, that will help a lot in different kind of areas and different types of settings. Again, we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And as you're going to see, again, we're now making a much larger step down. And because we are using flat area detection, we could be adding back additional toolpaths for no reason. Now, where you're going to see that, and it's kind of interesting, is if you notice I come around this corner, well, from this layer to this layer, let's say it is 5mm, but this layer here might only be 1mm. That is that flat area detection coming in. So again, if I go back out there and I say, you know what, I'm not going to use flat area detection, we should see now that we're actually skipping some of those toolpaths. Now, this could be good or bad. Yes, sometimes you'll need it. No, sometimes you won't. But as you're noticing here is it's a lot less step downs because, again, in the world of Z heights of this part, there's just a lot of flat areas to come around and find. The problem is it's trying to machine all of those in one shot. Now, again, you could go back through this a little bit more. Depending on what you're trying to do, you have things like order bottom up if you wanted to work from the bottom of your part upwards and things of that nature. Now, given the fact, as you guys are seeing, is 3D is so dedicated to being such a model-driven toolpath, there's still going to be things on this part you may want to do prior to help also cut down on this toolpath. So again, as you're seeing me do with a 3D toolpath, I could possibly finish my floors ahead of times. That would help alleviate some of the material, or something as simple as throwing some simpler 2D toolpaths. So as you guys are seeing me do here, I'm going to go around and grab a couple of these spots. But to me, I think the big thing that I would consider if I was doing a part like this, Stuart, is, you know, what is the advantage of cycle time, right? Am I happy with, you know, a heavier step down, or do I want to go back to that other concept of let's go in, let's actually get the flat areas all in one shot? Again, is it going to affect me having 2 additional minutes of cycle time in this case, right? That's where my decisions come from. As we teach most people, we always start training off in 2D toolpaths, then you wise up and you get in the world of 3D, as you guys see me using here a lot. Well, when you're really getting into production and high volume stuff, you're concerned about cycle time, which usually you find yourself back in the world of 2D. So the question I would have for Stuart here is, are you worried about cycle time because of quantity, or are you willing to let the cycle time float around a little bit more? Because again, something like this toolpath, although it may be making a couple additional paths I don't like. Now, for those of you out there wondering, I did not finish up the floors like I should have, but overall this toolpath is doing quite a bit. And if I was to go in after the fact and hit this again, one more time around, another contour, smaller tool, right? So we're going to go down from a 5. You have anything down like a 2. Again, with our rest machining, trying to eliminate as much as possible, right? So again, we're getting a lot of additional moves, as you guys are seeing. Some of that can be attributed to, one, not having rest machining turned on, as yours truly did. So we can go ahead and hit OK. And again, you could play that game of no flat area detection, right, in the toolpath prior to, and allow the next toolpath to pick up on that. So again, go ahead and let me know, Stuart. Cycle time was an hour. Toolpath generated a cycle time of 5 minutes. So I don't know about that much. Keep in mind, I don't know much about your machine. But I did see one recently. There's some guy on YouTube makes a bunch of YouTube shorts. They had a 4-to-1 ratio spindle speeder for live tooling on the lathe, and it might be the best thing I've ever seen. So again, getting down there further and further. Now we play that game. Do you want to bring that tool up, jump around a bunch? As you're seeing, it's actually staying down in this pocket. It's not doing retracts till the end. So it's, again, I just went from what you provided, 5mm tool, straight into that, 2mm tool, and just let the software do the work for me. Now, again, I still might want to, at the end of the day, still do an adaptive clearing. We're going to go ahead and reorder this because I'm going to drag that up because I want that smaller end mill to now rough out. And then I want that smaller tool to go ahead and hit contour after the fact. So Phil out there asking, what's the difference between 2D adaptive clearing and adaptive clearing? So as you're going to see, Phil, the big difference is in the world of 2D, you're defining what you want to machine. So again, geometry wise, I need to pick the edges of the model because I need to tell the software what is actually being physically done. Now on the world of 3D, everything in the geometry side of things is actually driven by the model. And what you're going to notice is it's a boundary game. Is where do you want to machine within, not what do you want to machine to, because the model is what we're machining to, if that makes sense. So the cutter was tiny and long. Yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast on parts like this, man. Is you always try to find what is the biggest cutter that you could fit through there. I think I'm representing it right here. This is, again, like when Stuart reached out to me, I said, what would happen is instead of using adaptive clearing, why not use something like pocket clearing? So again, if we went in and we said pocket clearing instead, I'm going to go ahead and drag this up and we're going to regenerate this, but you're going to notice pocket clearing. Again, the strategy for pocket clearing is working in a constant step down, if that makes sense, to rough things out. Now, some of you are probably already questioning why we're not getting into certain areas. Again, everything is based off, anything from stock to leave to the rest machining and how it's being calculated. So again, as you guys can see, I went ahead and reduced my stock to leave. Now, again, if a customer is not too concerned at all about this, is as you would notice, I could actually get away with using something like pocket clearing to do the entire part. And with that entire part, no stock to leave. I would recommend upping your tolerance a little bit just to get you a little closer and more precise to your part. So excuse me real quick, guys. I know I'm a little winded here on this explanation. But as you can see, presumably I could get away with using rest machining and pocket clearing to actually finish the walls. Now, I don't recommend this in most cases. I know a lot of guys in the world of woodworking, they use a tape measure tolerance. It's a different scenario and a different way to think about it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back here. Is Matt, I know you had a question here And your question was about post-processing with pass-through. Was that on your actual Mazak machine? Go ahead and let me know in the chat. Outside of that, is there a way to unlink tool from setup 1 and setup 2? Unlink. I would be curious to see what you're requiring there, Deep Thinker, about the unlink command. I'm also, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my ticket system. I want to make sure that none of you guys are sending me tickets in the ticket system here. So let's go ahead and get that resolved. And then from that, let's go ahead and see. Stuart, I hope that helps you out a little bit. I mean, pocket clearing might be the way to go if you're really looking to finish things out. Unlink a tool from setup 1 and setup 2. Deep Thinker, I'm going to need more information on that. In the meantime, I believe, Matt, if you're still out there, I'm going to assume you're worried about your Mazak machine. Let's go ahead and pop open a lathe part for today's class. So actually, I do have this shrouded impeller. Now, I already have some tool paths on this part, so what I'm really looking for is just to come in, and we're going to go ahead and add a manual NC pass-through, and we're going to make sure that it's even inside of the software, so I always like to hit this with test. I'm not going to call out Stuart, but Stuart, I remember there was something about a lot of beers for working through that part. I'm kidding, of course. I'm kidding. Appreciate the super chat, but let's go ahead and post this out and see what we get. I'm going to post it with a simpler toolpath because I don't want a mile's worth of code. So let's go ahead and go into the default Fusion library. And we are looking for a MSY, and that is a Mazak. Now, if I remember, it was possibly a QTU, which does have the smooth controller, or it was the Mazak Quick Turn, which also has the smooth controller. Either one's going to make it so that we're going to post out code, and we'll take a look if the pass-through even comes through. But as you guys can see, we went ahead and posted that code. And if I look down at the bottom of my code here, based on that one, we are getting the pass-through function. As I tell most people, you want to make sure that you have the latest version of the post, unless you have post edits, right? So I know we make a lot of edits for you guys out there. You may have to go in and change some things. Just be aware that grabbing the latest and greatest version of a post, and I'll show you guys how to do this. If I go into my post library right now, you're going to notice in my lovely folder of stuff that never makes it out to the public that I trash here in real time, as you're going to see, I can go over here to this lovely little bell that says there's a newer version of this post. Well, I can ignore it, or I can hit OK. And what that is going to do upon hitting OK is it's going to bring in that latest version. Again, Fanic Robo Drill here. We're on 44.186. I say ignore. I come down to the Haas Next Gen 184. This is showing me that this is an edited post. So we're going to go ahead and overwrite. And as you're going to see, we're now on 189 versus 184. So again, setup 1 in the machine and setup 2 in another machine. So the same size end mill might have 2 different tool numbers. Okay, we'll go ahead and dive into that here. Now on the MS250Y smooth, yeah, it's in the middle of 2 setups. Okay, so let's go ahead and post out toolpaths from 2 separate setups. We're gonna grab this first one. I'm gonna grab the second one. Let's make sure we're using that smooth controller, of course. We're gonna go ahead and swap out to the smooth controller, free post process. And with that, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Matthew, it looks like we're still utilizing that manual NC pass-through. So we may need to do a little bit more diving into your post processor and get an idea of what is the issue or what's going on. So as we're going to say, we're going to go ahead and switch gears here. Matt, if that is not the case, go ahead and let me know. Like I said, is I would grab the latest and greatest because to me, pass-through is working in its current stage. Now you may have certain toolpaths that you're doing that could still cause that problem. But we're going to go ahead and switch gears here. So what I would recommend in the use case of Deep Thinker, I'm going to go ahead and go back. Now, in the case of this part, again, good example, setup 1, setup 2. Let's get rid of these other or actually, we just need to get rid of this one. So again, here's a good use case that maybe, let's say, for example, I'm going to put this on, you know, the old dinosaur in the corner to deck off the top and do the simpler stuff, right? And then I'm going to move it over to a different machine later. The problem is things like tool numbers as well as things like speeds and feeds are going to change based on the machine, right? So what I would recommend when you go into your post library and start to organize things, not post library, what am I doing? Tool library. Maybe I had too many before this. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Is I would recommend setting up, in this case, your shop crib. Now, this is a use case that I would use, right? So again, you guys are going to notice I have a couple of shop cribs here. So as you can see, I have one for milling technically. Well, my tooling inside of my shop crib shouldn't have any tool numbers associated with it because that would allow you to place this on either machine and give it whatever number you want. Now, like we were talking about, let's say I have a VF2 and then I'm going to go in and say new library. Let's just say we're going to move this to, let's go to the DVF, right? DVF 5000. It's been a while since I picked on somebody other than Haas, right? We went to the 500. Apparently we got the smaller model, but the idea would be is when grabbing tools is I could grab these out of the default library, or I could copy said tool, of course, paste it, and then edit my tool number, allowing, in this case, I would like this to actually be, I don't know, number 99, right? So upon doing so, we could also move it over into our toolpath as a whole. But as you're going to see is when I go into face now the other side of this part, I would select that tool. And as you're going to notice is I'm going to jump down to that DVF 500, grab that 2-inch face mill later. And now you're going to notice I have tool 99 over here while I still have tool 10 over there. Watch your video at 0.5 speed and it's like you've had too many. 100%. We could slow it down for anybody getting lost in the back, right? So let me check my ticket system, guys. I don't see any tickets coming in. I see a ton of people sitting in here doing absolutely nothing. So I don't know which one of you guys are out there putting bots in my chat, but thank you. I'll take the free viewership at any time. But again, as you guys are seeing, in the case of that deep thinker, the easiest way to do this right now is, like I said, is to set up, and this is just me, is in your tool library. If I go back to that shop crib down here, and for demonstration purposes, let's go ahead and make sure that this is, you know, shop crib mill. Now you could have made a shop crib folder and then had mill versus lathe, however you guys plan to organize this. But what I would do at the tool level then is I would go to my cutting data. And as you guys can see is I have 6061F. Maybe I rename this to, you know, now the VF4. And then I could actually go ahead and create a new one, 6061F. And this might be my VF2 or something, or, you know, Fadal, right? So again, is I can now drive this based on different parameters. So I know on the Fadal, that guy only goes about 6,200 RPMs because the bearings are shot. Cutting feed rate's going to be more like 40, so forth and so on, right? You got to watch everything at 1.75 to get through it. Yeah, I know my content's got a lot of filler in there, right? So as you guys are seeing, again, this would just be my recommendation that when we're talking about your shop crib, I personally wouldn't have tool numbers on my tools because that's one of the last things in the process I find myself doing, but it makes it very easy for you to jump and grab specific speeds and feeds based on each individual machine and then set, you know, your tool number later when you go to run your program. So hopefully in the future, I don't know the full extent of it. It would be cool. Autodesk, this is one of those times. I'm going to put a marker in here. Autodesk bitch moans, gripes, and complaints that given that I am utilizing machines in my cloud, why can't I tie a tool to the machine from the cloud, right? So I think a lot of people are in that mindset that like, hey, if I'm in here machining something and I select a machine, is maybe we start to see a set of tools that are pushing, pulling from the machine. It's already in the cloud. It's already somewhere where I could store stuff. You guys correct me in chat if I'm wrong, but again, going back, we're going to see in my tool library, I would love to see in document the actual machine right here, right? This would be cool versus setup 5, setup 6. Why can't we see machine, right? We could see everything and anything, but we can't see the machine right here. It'd be neat as could be to see the actual tools against the machine itself. But that would also allow you to do things like pull max spindle RPM and things of that nature. Who knows? I know I've seen some cool things they're doing in the background of Fusion. If you guys aren't a part of the Insider program, now this is my disclaimer. I recommend you get on the Insider program. It's really neat to see certain things coming out. For those of you that don't know, I'll give you a little peek here. Is down here where it says preview features. I'm not going to click it because I don't want you to see what's in there. You get the preview features of things that may or may not come out inside of Fusion and get an inside look at some other things outside of that. Explain ignore stock less than again. Sure, no problem, Nuno. I got you, buddy. Is the whole idea of ignoring stock less than is in the event that we are looking at remaining stock. Now, this is a model in the background of Fusion. From that stock, what is the limitation of what do you want to machine versus what don't you want to machine? A little better example of this would be, let's say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and do this a little bit quicker here. We're going to go ahead and do our contour with that big end mill. And then I'm going to go in and derive out my, see here, we're going to go ahead and do our 3D milling contour. So again, there's our large tool. And then here's our small tool to go find all the areas that the large tool didn't cut, right? Well, the problem is once I turn on rest machining by default, we have a minimum threshold to worry about. And as you're going to see is that ignore less than kind of scenario comes into play. Now, some of us may or may not know that there's probably a little bit more lenience there because, one, we're working with a tolerance of 1/10, or not 1/10. What is this in millimeters? 0.01 millimeters. That's what I'm going to say. Is that a micron? Somebody put it in chat. Oh man, my screens just went blurry here. And I'm back. You guys are still out there, I hope. I just got flashbanged by my own monitors. But as you guys can see, again, we have that tolerance, but in this case, our ignore stock less than, technically we've machined all these walls to 0, right? So anywhere that big end mill touched is going to be 0. Now, if I was to actually enter 0 in here, you'll notice that it's going to start to extend out my tool path because it doesn't know where there is and where there isn't actual machine surfaces. Again, if you were to actually increase that ignore stock less than, let's say we go out to 0.1, micron is 0.01 millimeters. You're going to notice now that gets shorter and shorter. And the reason why that's getting shorter and shorter is because when we look at, and this is going to be tricky to see, so I am going to, let's turn off transparent. We might actually, we could see it from here, I think. If you guys notice is that big end mill can't get all the way back in these corners, but there's a point where that end mill stops, right? And you're seeing that in this radius, but that radius, that is where you're basically seeing that different variances in stock to leave come through. So ignore less than, 0.1 or 0.01. Again, that's when that tool path is going to start in. So again, awesome. I'm glad to see that you're getting it. That's great. That's the whole purpose of this stuff at the end of the day. I'm seeing a bunch of different things come through. Let's see here. I gotta double check a few things here. This is where I'm gonna hit you guys with the sales pitch. As you guys know, we love anything and everything on this channel. We like the likes, the subscribes, the sharing of our content that you guys are really, really good at. With that being said, you can actually support our channel a little better. You can buy us some beers. You can buy us some steaks. You can subscribe to our services to include things like utilizing our top tier support, which year one is great for anybody because it comes with training, minor post edits, not to mention when you're up late at 8 p.m. Friday. I don't know if one of you guys are on my YouTube right now, but there's always somebody at 8 p.m. on Friday when I'm trying to enjoy some popcorn and the beers you guys buy. You always put in a ticket because there's some hot rush part that you waited till then to tell me about, but you had the problem at 10 a.m. Well, the good news is that insurance policy of having somebody in your corner to help you guys out. So let me go ahead and check my emails and make sure we're not mixing anything. I am seeing Matt sent in an email, super ecstatic about that post processor. And we're going to go ahead and, Matt, let me know in chat real quick. Can I open this part on YouTube Live to take a look? As you guys are going to see, we got some people wanting to give me money. Can't go wrong there. Let me go ahead and get my screen switched back over. You guys are all out there. We got FedEx from Tulsa, I assume. Great to see you guys in chat. All right, we got Jeff with some questions. Like to set up some training for work holding scenarios. Jeff, I always got time for you, buddy. I am out of pocket, though, for part of next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I got to fly Monday, nonetheless, through Minneapolis Airport, where beers are $9 a piece. So good news is, Stuart, I'm going to drink that beer quite well and quite fast. So do I cover UK? So currently we do not sell software directly in UK, but we do offer everything and anything on the support side of things. Now, I don't know what 8 p.m. is in the UK. I'm hoping it's not 2 a.m. my time. Somebody will have to tell me in chat. But for the most part, we do our best to accommodate anybody and everybody. I know a lot of people ask us about that on the services side is, hey, you know, Fusion Phil, like, when are you available? Basically from when I wake up until I go to bed. As my wife has said, this little device here runs my life, which is my cell phone that I get all notifications. 1 p.m. my time. Awesome. You know what, John? I am thankful for that. Stuart, I tell you what, man, sign up for support and send me 8 p.m. tickets all day, every day. I'll take that. Bill, it's almost 6 p.m. there. So it's already 5 o'clock somewhere. It's 5 o'clock at Phil's place, right? Cool, guys. Do you have any more questions? Anything else that you want to see? Again, I'm going to give this a few more minutes. Feel free to shoot your questions in chat. Any questions whatsoever. You guys have questions about Toolpath, I'll do my best to answer them. I am not an expert, as you guys have been declared to all day Wednesday. Kind of interesting. I've heard a lot of people reaching out to Toolpath about that video, and they're super ecstatic. Hey, 6 p.m. there now. Awesome. Glad to hear it. So guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and throw them in chat. Send us a support ticket. I'm going to go ahead and scrub this one more time. Give me 1 sec here. Anybody? I'm not seeing anything. Alrighty. How long have we been going? Has it been an hour? It's been an hour and 6 minutes. We're just under an hour from when I started this. Going once, going twice. I'm going to start the outro. You guys ready for it? This is usually when you guys start talking in chat. I'll wait. 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Another free support Friday. I'm actually stoked. There's been 20 plus people in here watching this thing. There hasn't been 20 plus people in here talking and asking questions, which means a lot of people are out here and able to actually observe things. And as Jeff is asking, am I available on Saturday mornings? It depends on how many beers I get bought during this free support Friday. But for you, Jeff, are you looking for this Saturday or next Saturday? Actually, next Saturday, no. This Saturday, yes, if that makes sense. I'll be on an airplane next Saturday. But with that, feel free to reach out to us, Jeff. We got you, of course. As most of you guys know, Fusion Phil over here, jitcadcam. If you're watching this at a later date, hit us with a like, subscribe, share our content, leave comments if you guys want to see something. Use the support email. Use the info email address. Sean needs people to talk to. He's been telling me he's been lonely since you guys haven't been reaching out. But with that, have a great rest of your weekend. Get back to it Monday morning, and I will see you guys maybe next Friday. It's up in the air at the moment, but I might see you guys next Friday for another free support Friday, live from my hotel room, or anybody in the Philadelphia area wants to host a free support Friday, I'll be in the Philadelphia area. Have a good one, guys.